People who want to know what is the KeithAndrewNetwork, the whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, so prove them and still amount to something. My name is Keith Andrew, and welcome to the Keith Andrew Network. If you're watching on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and all social medias, make sure to like and subscribe so you will be up to date with all fantastic and wonderful content from this great upcoming network, plus supporting someone with learning disabilities. Today on the Keith Andrew Network, we have an upcoming professional actress and an actress from the hit show Chicago Fire. I won't say who it is, but you will hear from them under recommendations after this quick commercial break. One thing I want to say, if you're watching, please comment, because our guests would love to interact with you. I would love to interact with you. And hashtag break the labels. When we come back, we're going to jump in with the first question. And the first question is icebreakers.
I'm Rylie Coe. I'm 14 years old. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and I still live here.
My name is Banos, and I'm an actor out of Chicago. I've just been interviewed by Keith Andrew, and I am happy to support him and his network.
Hey, so Rylie, you are an upcoming, and if I butcher your name, I apologize, pardon my disability, but you are an upcoming professional actress. So the first one I want to talk about is icebreakers. As we mentioned before the commercial break, tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Rylie. I've been acting since I was about 7. I've done lots of training. I've worked with a lot of different people who have definitely made an impact. And I love what I do, and I love doing this and meeting new people and getting to talk to everybody.
No, absolutely. And now from our next guest, she's from the hit show Chicago Fire. And what can you say and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Debbie. I was on an episode of Chicago Fire, and that was a lot of fun. I've been working out of Chicago for the last 7 years. And I've been acting probably for 15, 16 years. And I've recently been working more on film and TV than stage, but I started off doing acting on stage, so as a stage actor.
No, that sounds wonderful. And to make it easier, Rylie, you're going to be box 1, and Debbie, you're going to be box 2, so it makes it easier for me so I can focus on the questions. So, box 1, actually, let's start with box 2, because I was very interested in this. How did you get on Chicago Fire? And if I want to follow in your footsteps, or the beautiful and talented Miss Rylie wants to be on Chicago Fire, what were the steps in the process that you had to go through?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I got on, I'll tell you how I got on Chicago Fire, and I'll talk about some of the steps that got me there. So I got on Chicago Fire after I auditioned for the casting director her name is Claire Simon. So I auditioned for Claire Simon. And I got that audition through my agent, 10 Talent. And so that's how I ended up on Chicago Fire. I sent in my audition, and then they reached back out to me, like the showrunners for Chicago Fire, through Claire Simon and my agent, and they told me that I was on check avail, so I was on hold for the date. And then a couple of days later, I got the news that I had booked the show. And then, I went on to shooting the episode, and then it went on the air. So that's how that happened. So I would say the most important thing is that I had an agent, because I would not have gotten that audition without that agent.
Well,
So
you
yeah.
had two great subjects I would love to talk about while we're on the subject, but I want this to be interactive. Box one, do you have any questions? Do you like Chicago Fire?
So I have actually heard about Chicago Fire, but I don't think I've ever personally seen it. But honestly, it's really inspiring, your story and how you got onto it.
Yeah, thanks.
No, absolutely. And like I said off the air, it's about bringing people together, about networking, and going to box one, tell our audience. I don't know if I actually act. No, we did. I don't worry. I can always edit this part out. Did I ask you introduce yourself? You did, right?
Yes, I introduced myself.
Okay, so I can actually just edit that part out. Don't mind me. I had like a brain fart.
No, you're good.
So the question I want to ask you is, what TV shows did you air on or like to air? Let me rephrase that. Blah, 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 blah. So the question I want to ask you is, what TV shows do you want to appear on?
Oh, that's hard. I have a lot of favorite TV shows. I mean, personally, probably want to be on something more upcoming. Like, I mean, I guess they're doing another season of Stranger Things. That'd be great to do. And I mean, one of my favorite shows is Shameless, but they've been done filming that for a while. But that's one of my favorite shows personally. But I don't think I could appear on that. But I would have loved to if it was still airing.
No, absolutely. For me, Breaking Bad, it was a good show. Should have ended after season. I'm just gonna say it should have ended after season 4. It had a great ending. How it ended in season 5, it was alright, but it was a little unnecessary. But that's the problem. You have these superhero shows to go and be on. Smallville is an example for 10 years. And if you have great writers and a great team, yes, but it's really hard. And I'm an example of that. I've been doing this for almost 10 years. You got to have maybe 500 good ones, and then you got to scratch your head and be like, why the hell did I interview this one? And then you're filling in space. But with every season, it's really hard. You really need to do, even if you take breaks, the writing and the storytelling really carries it. Because it's saying, for an example, being on TV for 10 years, you look at Home Improvement, you look at Boy Meets World, you look at Family Matters, you look at All in the Family. These people grew up and they were your age, back on, they were your age when they started, and when they finished. And I'm not saying box 2 you're old or anything, that's, don't throw anything at me, but they end the show when you're your age, so you can see from the beginning. Here's an example I want to talk to you guys about. Watch season 1 of Blue Bloods, and then watch the recent episode that will be on, I think, this Friday, of Blue Bloods. The kids are in college, they're a lot older, so you see the story progress from box 1's age way, way, way down the road to box 2. And I'm not saying I'm old or anything. I'm 34, thank you. But you see what I mean? If you tell the story gradually, it makes more sense. I think, for an example, the daughter on Blue Bloods, she was 16 when it started. Now I think she's like, 26, and she's in college. So from high school to college, you see the process. But anyway, I don't want to go on a roll rant. But box 1, question I want to ask you is, what did you want to major in? I know you're an upcoming professional actress, but who inspired you to start that career?
For me, ever since I was a child, I always watched Tim Burton films. I was always a big fan of Johnny Depp and those sort of things. I basically grew up watching those. I'm pretty sure every day before I actually went to preschool, I would watch Coraline, and I watched that on repeat for my whole preschool career every morning. So definitely Johnny Depp and Tim Burton films were a big inspiration for me. And Johnny Depp is an incredible actor, so he's very inspiring.
Now, what about you, Debbie?
Yeah, so I also, grew up watching the Tim Burton movies. I was a little bit older when I was watching them, but I also watched them. But for me, I don't know, I really loved Robin Williams a lot. I just loved everything he was in, and I started like trying to find more Robin Williams stuff after Aladdin. So when I watched Aladdin, and he was the genie, and then you'd find like little things here and there. So he was a big inspiration for me, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, I really love that. And I just always enjoyed acting, pretending, singing. That was always like so much fun for me. And getting to see other people do that was really cool. But I didn't decide I was going to be an actor until I was probably like your age, Rylie. Like when I was like, you said, how old did you say you were? Did you say?
I'm 14.
14. Well, actually, I was a little bit older than you when I decided that I wanted to act. Probably about 16 or 17. Yeah.
Now, because both of you are in the arts field, did you always want to be an actress, or what's your plan B?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, well, ever since I was a child, my dad put me in acting classes, and I kind of started with that. And it kind of just grew as a thing, but I've always been interested in artistic kind of stuff. I've been doing acting for so long, or at least since I was younger. So it's kind of just something that I grew with. And I think it helped me grow as a person. And I've been into art. I'm in an art class in my school. It's my favorite class I've ever taken. The teacher, the students, and the projects that we do are really great. And I love things like that.
Now, what about you, Debbie? Same exact question.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually, because I've been thinking about this a lot. When I went to undergrad, I started off on an electrical engineering scholarship. I had a full ride scholarship, and I quit electrical engineering because I was not happy. All I wanted to do was to be in the theater department and audition for shows and different things like that. So I quit the electrical engineering. And at the time, there was a lot of stigma surrounding having a plan B, because then if you had a plan B, then you weren't really serious. But I have to say that, first of all, that's really silly, because for a number of reasons. One of the biggest reason I would say is that people have to live, like they have to eat, they have to pay their bills, like there are certain things. And if you come from a background where you have money and your parents have given you all this money to do all this, I'm very happy for you. Like, I don't think there's no shame for that, because everyone just wants to do art if they had all the money that they could, right? So do it, because you might as well. But if you don't, and I would say the majority of people don't have that luxury, you don't necessarily need a plan B, but you need a plan until. Because it's most of the time, even if you're the most talented person, you're not going to make a ton of money right off the bat. Most likely, you're not going to make any money right off the bat. You're going to have to keep going to classes. You're going to have to keep getting headshots. You're going to have to keep investing in your business, which means you're going to need money. But what are you going to do until then, right? Not everyone is cut out to be a waiter or a waitress or whatever. Not everyone is cut out to be a server. And the people who are and who are really good, that's a good until plan, But had someone talked to me when I was in school and told me, Debbie, what are you going to do until you make enough money to live off of storytelling and live off of acting? I would have gotten a double major and majored in like IT and become like a programmer because that's something that I find very interesting, I find fun, and would be a good paying job where I wouldn't have to worry about needing that next paycheck.
Yeah, it's funny to mention a plan B because I do have a plan B. You should always have a plan A, B, C, D, whatever list you want to organize. My plan A is my talk show. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I found something that I'm passionate about, makes me happy. You meet a lot of interesting people. You make a lot of good friends. Some people you kind of scratch your head about, but you're making a statement like, hey, look at someone who has a disability and who doesn't. I never went to college, so I have no BAs or bachelors. Hell, I don't even have a freaking high school diploma. And I have something called a IEP. What that is, you can pretty much, and like I said, uncensored, you can wipe your ass with it. Okay, being real, but an IEP is an individual educational program, and then that's fine. You know, if you want to learn how to work on a refrigerator, if you want to work on cars, go to trade school. You know, that's fine, but you're not going for a 4 year school. You're not never going to be a wink wink what a society labeled you it as. So the joke with the IEP for me is inefficient educational process because I don't even have a high school diploma. I just got something to like, here you go. For me, and by the way, I'm holding up a card. For me, I was pushed along, and I was pretty much like, yo, well, you're here today? Here's the newspaper. Go over there. Don't bother me. So I really hope in your case, you know, Raleigh, you're getting a hell of a better education than I did 16 years ago. Because back then, now they care. Now they can't really turn a blind eye because everyone has a cell phone. It's like, oh, he said that, she said that. 16 years ago, this is how embarrassed I was. Looking back at it, it was a good idea, but looking back, it was really stupid. I walked in with a briefcase and a laptop. Now, there's my brother's friend did the same thing back in 2001. He walked around, you know, in a suit, briefcase, and a laptop. He was way ahead before his time. So I said, okay, if he can do it, I can do it. Wasn't good. I didn't. Yet a plan sounded good, but I didn't execute it right. But the point is, people assume, you know, with a learning disability. And, you know, for you guys, I make an example. My speech is in the introduction, so I don't have to repeat it during the show. But the highlights is labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. So prove to them you can still mount to something. So hashtag break the labels. Without wasting your time by doing the whole speech over and over again. But I'm showing you, hey, people say I read and learn at a 5th grade, high school level. I'm on the spectrum of being retarded. I learn at a slower pace. When you guys have a script, and that's the next one I'll ask you, I'm like, okay, you know, you say, hey, Dad, can you help me with this? Or you ask your husband, you know, can you read it over? And that's fine. For me, I have to find someone like, okay, what's the first line? Or if I'm doing a test, what's the first one? Give me the answers. Can you give me an example of each answer? So I learn at a slower pace, and because of that, people don't really have the time or patience. They just like to throw a label at you and say, this is who you're going to be for the rest of your life. And it's kind of like, ha ha ha, prove us wrong. But the question I want to ask you is actually 2 parts. Besides me, obviously, have you worked with people with disabilities? And for people with learning disabilities who want to follow in your footsteps, what would some of the words of wisdom that you can give them? In box 1, we're going to start off with you.
I have not worked with anybody with a disability yet, but I really hope to do that in the future. And a little word of wisdom is honestly just keep going, keep pushing. Everything that you do it matters and it's important. And you got to keep going and you got to put the effort in and you see where you end up.
Box 2?
Yeah. To my knowledge, I don't know that I've worked with someone with disability who's been open about it. I'm pretty sure I have worked with people with disabilities because they're really everywhere. Like it's, I know in school I worked with people with disabilities, different levels of, I guess, I don't know. It's really difficult to talk about it, right? Because I think a lot of something being a disability has to do with the society that you live in, and what is expected of people. Yeah, because depending on where you are, your disability may not be a disability, right? Because you might be in a community that that is paying attention, um, that feels that a different type of way of thinking is helpful to be able to see things in a different way. I've been friends with people with disabilities, and I would say the main thing is to find the people who love you and who are there for you and who are going to help you in whatever way that you can. Because it's not that you can't, right? Or that it even matters that you can do that. Like, why do you need to do that is one of the questions, right? Like something that you might not need to do that. You do something that's you, right? Mm, when I've dealt with some of the friends that have disabilities, sometimes some of the things that they can see are like really important for us to be able to see, and they can reflect that. But yeah, just find your people, and that's hard.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. And there's actually two questions I want to ask you. But this one seems more interesting because you brought up the part where you have to find your people. And the first one I want to ask you is social media. Can social media make you or break you? And box 1, I know you have a huge following behind you. And box 2, you too, because you've been on TV. But people out there, do you think it's really important to say I have to have millions of people to follow me on all social medias? The first question I want to ask you about this one is, do you think that gives you the edge, saying I have all these people behind me, but at the same time, do you think it takes talent?
I don't think that the amount of people following you doesn't define you. Of course, if you're using it for, I guess, just kind of getting yourself out there, that's great. And that's always important as a part of, this kind of work that I'm in. And I know a lot of people are, you do need to put yourself out there. So social media is a great way to do that, but it should never define you, and you should never get hung up on the amount of people that you have following you, because in the end of the day, it's not about that. It's about you enjoying what you do and having people who support and love you, no matter the number. It's not important.
Inbox 2.
I think it really depends on the person, right? Um, because and your mindset. I think that's really important too. Um, if you need social media, um, then I would question that. I would question, do you actually need it? If it brings you joy, that's a little bit different than needing something, right? Of course, it will add to your fans, to your following, just because people know who you are and they're invested in you. And if you post up, hey, I'm going to be in the show or whatever, they're going to want to see it because they're invested in your life. So that's good, but you shouldn't need it, because it can turn on you just as quickly as it loves you. It's not a real connection. You could make a real connection, meet real people from there, and become friends with an individual, but you don't have that type of relationship.
No, you're absolutely right. The last subject I want to ask you is how do you find the right people to represent you? And this is going to be for you, about Stu. Do you pay people? Well, let me ask you this real quick for both of you. We'll go with box one. Yes or no answer. Do you pay people to represent you? Real fast. Yes or no?
No, no.
But box two.
No.
Now the question I want to ask you, box two, where we're going before I did that dance around, was how do you find the right people to represent you? For an example, you have people represent you right now. Did you have to pay them? Was there a process? How
Yeah.
can people follow in your steps?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, don't ever pay people, for everyone listening, don't ever pay people to represent you. They get a percentage of what you make, so they do not make anything up front. That's first of all. If that happens, if someone asks you to pay, say no and find someone else. Second of all, it's a great thing to see who is going to represent you. First of all, they have to be excited about you. They have to love your work. But the way that it works is that I submitted to a whole bunch of agencies. So you submit your package, which includes your headshot, your resume, and if you have any reels or clips, you submit that to them. And then if they like you, they'll have an interview process. You interview them, you interview together, right? So they interview you, you interview them. When you're interviewing them, you want to know a couple of things like, do they care about you? Does it sound like they're gonna help you find jobs? Do you feel safe with their reputation and everything, right? If they like you and they offer you position, if they offer you representation, then you have to look at the contract that they send you. Make sure that it's a standard contract. I would say to check it out if it has a SAG contract, so that is the Screen Actors Guild. That will tell you that it's legitimate. If it doesn't have that, I would ask more questions. I would talk to other people, make sure that they don't have a contract that has a ridiculous amount of time that you have to be with them. Usually a SAG contract is like 1 year, and then after that you have to renew. Some contracts that are not SAG contract, they'll make them for longer. So then you have to figure out how to get out of those if something comes up, right? So after all of that happens and you decide that you want to go with an agency, you want to accept everything, you go through the process of signing contracts. If it's a SAG contract, you sign a contract that gets, I guess, basically logged with the Screen Actors Guild. And so that's how that works. Once that happens, they start sending you auditions, and you audition. And if you book something, you pay your agents a 10% fee. That's for agents that have SAG contracts. Other agents that don't have SAG contracts, they could be higher. It could be like 15 or 20%. Depending on the contract, depending on what it is, it might be worth it. But definitely pay closer attention if it's not a SAG. if they are not a SAG agency. If that makes sense. But yeah, that's I have an agent. I don't have a manager. Managers are different. They don't have SAG contracts, so a lot of times the fees are higher. But a manager will be way closer one-on-one with you as opposed to an agent who's just sending you out auditions, right? And depending on the agent, they might be more one-on-one or less than that. But a manager is way closer with you, but those fees are going to be usually higher than the 10%.
No, absolutely. I do want to talk to you both off the air. And Box One, what about you?
I have found really great people to represent me. If that's through a manager or an agency or even just like close friends in the business who've made my process in going through this career so much better. But I just signed with an LA manager, the Green Room Talent Management. They are great. I actually worked with one of their I worked with somebody who was involved with it, Kelly Sirois, who I used to do acting classes at her acting school, and it just kind of worked out that way that as soon as my other talent management began to only work with older people over 18, that we reconnected and signed with them. And I also am with a talent agent. I am with Align Stars. But bottom of the line, I don't think you should pay anyone to represent you, or even if that's through friends and connections like that.
No, I agree 100%. 100%. Don't mind me. I don't drink. It's been a long day. When I don't do my interviews as of late, my disability shows more. I try to hide it, but people are like, "Oh, that's the point of your show. You have disabilities. You have to show them. Show them that this is not a mask. This is not an act." That's why I make you guys laugh. But Zoom is counting us off because I don't pay for Zoom. But wrapping up, how can our fans and listeners follow you on social media? Box One.
I am on Instagram, Rylie Coe. Same with Facebook, just Rylie Coe, no capitalization.
And Box Two.
Instagram, it's at Debbie Banos, BANOS_actor. Yeah, you can find me there.
No, absolutely. Now, before I kick this off, it was a real honor and privilege doing this interview. I'm looking forward to part 2. God bless and keep in touch.